what we're trying to share with you is a decade worth of work in partnership. Dr. Stephanie Parker, who is listed at the bottom, she is definitely she's our partners because we work for the Chickasaw Nation. SNAP-Ed funding is usually doesn't go directly to tribes. We get it through the state of Oklahoma, but what we need is that research grounding so we can prove outcomes, because we know if we want the funding to continue, we've got to prove some outcomes. And really, what Stephanie focuses on and what her heart and passion is capacity building. There are times that we've looked for grants and we were going to write grants, and once we got into the writing of them, the money was just going to flow through to another organization. The Chickasaw Nation wasn't going to get any IDC. They weren't going to really get too much of a support. So she's the kind of researcher that says, no, I don't think that's in the best interest of the Chickasaw Nation. So we're very blessed and lucky to have her. And Jill's okay, too. But Jill...
I do what I can.
Yeah, so this tells you a little bit, even though Chickasaw Nation, this is what this initiative is. It came from the Chickasaw Nation, within the Chickasaw Nation. The SHINE group, that's Stephanie Parker's, they work at OSU, College of Human Sciences. So she is ours. They are 100% ours, even though OSU still does, the land-grant university, get the SNAP-Ed funding. And when we were going through the list of attendees, we saw there were a lot of people that, were funded by SNAP. So that's the reason I'm going into a little bit of the funding, so you can understand. She's ours. Her group is ours. So it's different. We just heard the speaker say everything that we wanted to say to you about you have to have a true partnership and you have to build those relationships. And if someone is not willing to come in and work in your communities and understand your communities, work through the IRB, work through the honoring the Chickasaw Nation policies and rules, it won't work. It won't work. So that's something that we truly want to focus on, and she did an excellent job, so we'll move on from that. Synergistic and holistic, that's another approach of what we're talking about. The Chickasaw Nation has vision, goals, and core values, and they're in our notes for our PowerPoint. We always look to that as what guides us, not about anybody being published, not about anybody's job. We're always looking to support the Chickasaw Nation, and that's the critical thing. But we also have to have university research to help us and to build more people to come through the pipeline to work with the Chickasaw Nation long after we're here, long after the soil's gone and the seeds are growing. The SNAP-Ed framework, those of you who know about the SNAP-Ed guidance, that's what we live by, and we have actually we were using the socioecological model way before it was in the guidance. We're happy that it's in the guidance, and now we have a SNAP-Ed evaluation framework. This is a several hundred-page document that's had a lot of work done on it, and we have had input into it. Actually, we kind of continue to have input into it. So what we're saying is we're presenting something that we've been doing for all these years, and now it is being reflected in what the government says that we have to do to keep getting the funds. So what we're saying is we're bringing our power and the hope, and it's pretty cool because we're going to make a difference.
So based on our framework, like Sarah said, we kind of have been in this prior to there being an actual framework. And I come from a background of public health. And when I started working with the SNAP-Ed program, they did not come from a background in public health. And so there were a few differences in my perspective and what they wanted to measure, because what they wanted to measure was purely food. And we all know that food is so important, but that is not everything in health. And so that framework does really excite me because it shows that other areas are coming together to really put together a strong framework of what we need to be doing. And so it has actually been a decade now. Our research started back in 2006. And it started with focus groups, just trying to talk to people within Chickasaw Nation boundaries to see what it is they were wanting. Looking at food, looking at health, what were their desires, what were their needs. That research continued into 2007, doing telephone surveys with people. And then also, if those of you who are familiar with photo voice, and so having people go into the communities with cameras and taking photos and then bringing those back and talking about what those mean to them, to really get to the heart of what's happening in the community and how does that reflect in your life. And the results from that, strong correlation to diabetes. As we heard earlier this morning, that is a disease that is affecting Native Americans everywhere, and most of us very personally. And so a lot of their thoughts were that this is just going to happen. My grandmother had diabetes, my mother had diabetes, I'm going to get diabetes, my children are going to get diabetes. And that was the big thing, the children, which we have also heard a lot about this morning, and is my passion. I love working with youth. And so all of those concerns came out in this research. And looking at, our research was with elders, and their concerns are the children. And so looking to see what it is that we need to be doing to be reaching that population that they want us to be working with. And so more research happened. So those of you in the research world understand that it's an ongoing process. But what it showed us was that we did need to do more research to figure out, they want us to work with children, what do we need to be doing? And then we also were testing some of our social marketing campaign that you will see later that, again, decade-long work to get one campaign going.
Yes.
And so storytelling also came about as a way to really pass along the messages to our youth. And so the Eagle books. Many of you are probably already very familiar with these books, but those really spoke to the message of diabetes prevention and really retaining our culture to prevent diabetes and bringing that awareness to youth in a traditional manner, but also in a fun manner. Because we know that you can't just talk at children. You need to engage them and meet them where they are. You have to be willing to play with them. And so these books really kind of brought to life everything that our elders were telling us we needed to be doing. So we turned it into art. Or we took art and made more art.
Yes. What we believe is that if it's worth doing, we should do it. And where we started with was taking the Eagle books. We know that they're long books, they're more lap books, but they were developed through true tribal consultation as well. So that's important to us, and they're beautiful, and they bring the hope of preventing diabetes. But how we wanted to kick it off, because we want to have a whole program, it's not just a curriculum. The things you see up here are what we use and what has been created over the years. And the play was a work of love, and we have 2 Chickasaw women who have taken the books and put them into a play. We've worked with 4-H kids, we've worked with our kids, because the near-peer thing is we feel like it's very important. And let me tell you, if the kids didn't love this Eagle play, we would not do it. It is hard. It sounds easy, and it is. We're a well-oiled machine, but it's still trying to get into the schools and tell the story. But this is where it starts.
And so, kind of going back to the research side, building the program, it started from the books and a play, but we realized one-off education does not show change that we're wanting to see with our youth. And so using the socioecological model as our guide, we created an in-school program that is now the Eagle Adventure program, trying to work directly with youth, but also trying to touch all of these different levels of their environment and the people that influence them. And so we have this school-based component. We have take-home messages for parents, in-school education, along with what we try to encourage teachers to do when we're not there, and messages that we have on posters and banners around the schools. And so the hope is always to encourage youth to become health leaders in their families, for them to take these messages home and have them have these discussions with their parents and show that we can prevent type 2 diabetes, that these children are our hope, and they are the ones who are going to make these changes. And so obviously food is a huge part of that. And so we really encourage fruits and vegetables. And that's really where we keep our focus, fruits and vegetables. We don't go any broader into food, but really trying to get kids to open their palates to things that they may have not ever tried before, and just encourage them to try them. Like, none of us like everything. How many of us picked apart different pieces of our breakfast this morning, right? But encouraging kids to give them a try and to be willing and open to those new things. And then asking their families to be willing and open to new things. And so on the table we have a variety of our materials, and a lot of people look at it and they're like, that is a lot of stuff. But that is the stuff that sells our program. Tangible things that kids can take home, that kids can make themselves, that they can show their families, that they can take to their families. Those are the things that are going to resonate. And so a lot of money goes into printing even just the evaluations that we do. But we had a teacher who, she was feeling this paper, and she actually rubbed it on her face. And she was like, these are such high quality materials. And to get into schools and to be able to work with schools, that's what you need. You need to show them that you care by the things that you are bringing for their children. And those books are free. And schools are so excited that we are giving their children books, and they don't cost us a cent. And so it's those actual physical things that make the program have such an impact. And so outside of the school, we also do a lot of community events. We have the Chickasaw Times. We have a little piece in here called Mr. Eagle's Corner, and so there's usually a game for kids. We incorporate language and try to have that as a piece of something that goes to their families every month.
Can I say something? I want to show. Chickasaw Times. This is a newspaper that the Chickasaw Nation puts out. That's where we can do more of a reach. This is our Governor Anatoby, Chickasaw Nation, with President Obama. I mean, I love that. And then here is our eagle's nest, right down here and in color. So these are some of the things that I think make a difference, and I just wanted to brag a little, sorry.
Yeah. We also have radio spots. KCMP is Chickasaw Community Radio, and the Chickasaw Nation has 5 radio stations. But the KCMP does a lot of community kind of NPR stuff, but what's going on in Chickasaw Nation. And so we have radio spots that air that children can listen to, and we tried to actually get them timed to 7:45 in the morning around drop-off times at schools when parents would be in the car with their children, and then also pick-up time from schools. And so that was another thing, is trying to time that. You don't want it happening at noon when kids are in school and nobody's listening to the radio. And then we, a couple years ago, started doing some signage at the local Chickasaw travel stops, really trying to promote water with different hanging tags and window clings, again, with our characters that the kids would recognize, because we want the kids to say, oh, I know that, and to be able to talk to their families about it. And this top picture, we love Teresa Jackson. Was from OSU, and then she came to us with the Chickasaw Nation. Now she's back at OSU, but still within the SHINE group, and is working on her PhD. And so everybody in our group, so researchers at OSU, they're a part of this. She's sitting doing an after-school program that we did with a tribal partner, and she's sitting reading the book to the young children. And so everybody is very much a part of this relationship. And so the books, obviously the storytelling, getting kids to start telling their own stories also, opening that up to a facilitated discussion so that we're reading the books, but then we ask questions about what's happening in the books and ask them to relate it and share their own stories, things that are going on in their families. Language revitalization is a huge thing within many Oklahoma tribes right now. The Chickasaw Nation has been working on this for several years, and so all of our materials do include language, and any tribes that we partner with, we include their language as well, and so we work with them to make sure that the materials are relevant to the children they're going to be working with. And so these are some of our partners, some of the different things that we've done. And again, we really do try to partner with other tribes and get them involved in what we're doing, but also to be involved in what they're doing. And so we don't just show up and say, we'd love for you to do our program, but it's, are you having a health fair? Can we have a booth? What can we do to help support this? And so all of these tribes, it hasn't just been that they've worked with us in Eagle Adventure, but we've also worked with them in other capacities in the work that they're doing. And we think that that's just as important, to be able to have those real relationships where they feel like they can call us and say, hey, we're having a health fair, can you come? Or we're doing this, do you have people? What can you, what other things can we provide? And so for many of you here, if you're on the research end, this is what you want to see.
We took out a lot more you'd want to see.
Yes, we took out a lot of the numbers. We didn't take out all of the numbers, but we did take out a lot of the numbers. Our pre and post evaluation we do on the youth that are in the schools, so first, second, and third grade, pre and post. And we're really trying to look at not just their knowledge, because they know these things. If you ask children, they know what they're supposed to eat. They know what you want to hear. So what we're really asking is, what are you actually doing? And this may not be something available to you, but would you give it a try? And so looking at what would their intentions be behind some of these things related to food and physical activity. Even though it may not be an option, is it an option that they would like? So we've been around for a couple of years now. We started in 2010 as a pilot program, and have been within Chickasaw Nation in 17 different schools, but then also with our partner tribes in an additional 9 schools. So we really are kind of spreading out. And what we've seen through all of this research, as our numbers continue to grow with youth, we can present these numbers with a little more reassurance behind them. But what we're seeing is that children's desire to eat vegetables is increasing, which is wonderful. Fruit, we're not seeing so much of a change, but most of us can get kids to eat fruit. When you present children with celery and no ranch dressing, if you can encourage them to eat that, you're making a step in the right direction. And so we do see an increase in intent to eat vegetables, and then also physical activity, which we know is also integral for building those healthy lifestyles.
I like to say something. When you talk about rural Oklahoma, we're Indian Territory integrated. Chickasaw Nation does not have a separate school. So when she says we went into 17, she means 17 different ones. So you're building relationships with all those different schools. It's not like one physical building that's under one umbrella, like New York City that has, Oklahoma just doesn't have it. We're a lot of small, 400 or 500 different school districts, something like that.
Yeah.
So it's a bit different in Oklahoma.
Yeah. And we have repeated schools because we do first, second, and third grade. And so we do put them back into the cycle to continue that relationship with schools. And so these are the numbers that we did keep to show evaluation. And so again, looking at food preferences, food desirability, which is probably more important when you're thinking about children, because then if they start to think about what do I want or what would I like to try, if they're in the grocery store with their parents, then they can start to really make some influence there. And then also physical activity. And so here are more of our parent evaluation. We only do it post, and it's more to see what the children are bringing home and what families are doing with the children, because we want to know what is actually being translated. And then we also do an evaluation with teachers to find out what we can do to really make an impact in the schools and in the classrooms. And so a parent comment that we had: when packing my son's lunch, I would open up the fridge and say, find me a green vegetable that you can eat for lunch. And he chose snap peas. Also, he was great about doing the 2-bite club. He does not always make good food choices, but the Eagle Adventure opened him up to trying new foods with color. And so, again, we know that we're not always going to make the best choices, but giving that child the freedom to choose something, giving them a little bit of a direction, pick something green, but then letting him choose what that is. My child helps his parent open cans of green beans and corns and puts them in the pan. He'll also clean the red and yellow potatoes when we ask him, and when we go to the store, he looks at different vegetables and asks what they are and how do you cook them. So again, that interest in food and the different foods out there. I liked how they had a realistic approach to nutrition. For example, so many programs tell children never to eat chips, candy, etc. But instead they talk about sometimes foods and everyday foods. I think that is something children will consider more than cutting it out completely. And so again, really trying to show them that there's not only one way, but being open to everything. And so our expansion with the after-school program, I already got our time, so I'm going to try to run through this quick.
10 minutes?
Yeah. So we started the after-school program with a grant from the Notah Begay III Foundation, and it is still in the piloting phases, but we do have 18 lessons that we've developed and have been working on with a few different schools in the Chickasaw Nation after-school program. So again, focusing on physical activity and hands-on food. So they're actually making their own snacks and learning what it takes to do that. So we are expanding, but these are our dreams. We love to keep on growing, and so any feedback we get, we really try to incorporate into the program and make changes as they're needed to really let the program evolve as our families are evolving, as our schools are evolving, and to continue to be able to make an impact.
Okay, we have, in the Chickasaw Nation, there's 13 counties, and so we have 3 main lines of programming. We do cooking shows in 3 different towns. We have 4 different places. We have the Eagle Adventure Diabetes Prevention Program, which is in youth, and then we have a social marketing campaign, Diabetes is Not Your Destiny. And everything that we do is OSU IRB, Chickasaw Nation IRB, and Chickasaw Nation Public Affairs they go through everything. So, and make sure we're doing it the correct way that fits with the Chickasaw Nation. And we're just going to I'm going to just show you the PSA.
I feel there's definitely a need for Native youth to be introduced to the whole growing process. It's a lesson in having faith and trust in what you're doing, and having trust in what people before you have done for a long, long, long time. I think the experience, that whole process of gardening, is that in itself it's a lesson on process, and it's something that you can be so proud of. It's something you put a lot of effort and work into, and then people are relying on you. As mothers, we set the tone for what our family eats, the things we put in our bodies. And for my daughters, I want them to appreciate that relationship with the land, that whole growing piece, preparing it, drying it, storing it, and those are all things that I think will build great character.
When the first time that we had Destiny launched, it played during a Thunder game, Oklahoma City Basketball Thunder. So we got lots of comments about it. Because we're SNAP-Ed funded, we don't have all the money. We try to use PSAs whenever we can and pay for the things that we have to pay for. The main thing I think that we want to communicate with you is that this is a program we've been doing that shows results. It is a living and growing program because we are all living and growing. We want to share. We are happy to share. We are happy to train. We built this because it wouldn't be worth doing if it couldn't be sustained and if we couldn't share it with others. I think, do you want to do the snake dance with them, or do you want to see questions?
I think we have time.
Okay.
We do have some materials on the table that you're welcome to take with you. We have some handouts, some of our recipe cards that we send home with the kids. There are some CDs that have the Eagle books on them in podcast, but they also have the one Eagle book in the Chickasaw language. And so they're kind of a fun thing. That's something that we send home with the kids, but then also we have for the teachers to utilize in their classrooms. And then if you're interested in Diabetes is Not Our Destiny, we do have some of the mailers, and so you can something easy to take with you if you want to look at that more. And so all of these are people that we've worked with throughout the years to make this program happen and grow. And so they're not able to be here, most of them, but we really do appreciate everything that they've done for us. On the Eagle Song, Joshua Parker Phelps is actually Dr. Stephanie Parker's son, who was 8 years old when we started this process and was very integral in everything that we do. And then this is resources that are available, learning about all of the different programs, and they'll be available on the slides that you all will get. And then this is from one of our Eagle plays in the school. That's the reason we do it. All those kiddos up there.
These two are, the one is my daughter's best friend. She's now doing a year at City Year in Boston. But we had our actors couldn't do it at the last minute, so we called them in, and her sister came with her, and she wants to be a drama teacher in school, so she, somehow Eagle provides. Somehow when we feel like things are possible, okay. And so now we have somebody who really is a director for us and wants to be a director, so because that's what you need.